Most men think attraction is built with words, but women decide everything in just 3 seconds of physical contact. A single moment can change how a woman sees you forever, and most men completely waste it without even realizing it. It's not your words, not your looks, not even your confidence during conversation. It's something far more subtle, something that happens in just a few seconds of physical contact. A simple hug. That one brief interaction is enough for her to decide whether she feels safe with you, whether she feels drawn to you, or whether you instantly fall into the category of just another guy. And the truth is, she won't tell you this. She'll smile, act normal, maybe even pretend it meant nothing. But deep down, her body already made a decision. Because every hug is not just a greeting, it's a silent conversation. It's a moment where two bodies communicate without words, where energy is exchanged, where attraction either quietly grows or completely disappears. In those few seconds, she's reading everything about you. Your confidence, your emotional control, your comfort with intimacy, your masculine presence, your ability to lead without asking for permission. And here's the problem. Most men fail this test without even knowing there was a test happening. They hug like they're unsure of themselves, too stiff, too disconnected, too quick to pull away. Or worse, they overcompensate. Too tight, too long, too needy. Both extremes send the same message to her subconscious. This man doesn't understand women. This man doesn't understand himself. But when you truly understand what's happening in that moment, when you learn to control the small details that trigger her psychology, everything changes. What used to feel random becomes predictable. What used to feel confusing becomes simple. And what used to be just a casual hug becomes a powerful tool of attraction. It starts with something I call the anchor touch, and this alone separates the average man from the one she remembers long after the moment is over. Most men hug casually, placing their hands wherever feels convenient, usually around the shoulders or mid-back, tapping lightly, then stepping away as fast as possible. It's polite, safe, forgettable. But if you want her to actually feel something, you need intention behind your touch. When you pull her in, your hand placement matters more than you think. Instead of being random or hesitant, you place one hand firmly on her upper back, right between her shoulder blades. Not too low, not too soft, not unsure. Right there, with calm, grounded pressure. This spot is not random. It's where tension builds throughout her day, where stress sits in her body, where she unconsciously carries emotional weight. And when your hand rests there with confidence, something shifts inside her nervous system. It sends a message she doesn't consciously process but instantly feels. I've got you, you're safe here. That one signal alone can lower her guard faster than any words you could ever say. And here's why it works so deeply. From an evolutionary standpoint, women are naturally wired to look for safety, stability, and protection in a man. Not in an obvious dramatic way, but in subtle cues. Small signals that tell her she can relax around you, that she doesn't have to be on guard, that she can let go of control for a moment. That specific point on her upper back triggers exactly that response. It taps into something ancient, something instinctive. It's the same reason she feels more comfortable walking beside a man who leads with confidence, or why she naturally relaxes when she feels physically supported. When your touch communicates strength without force, presence without pressure, she feels it instantly. She might not understand why your hug feels different, but she will notice it. She'll feel more comfortable around you, more open, more drawn in ways she can't explain. And that's where most men underestimate the power of this moment. They think attraction is built through long conversations, through impressing her, through saying the right things. But in reality, attraction often begins in silence, in the small details, in moments like this where your body communicates what your words cannot. And once that feeling is created, once she starts associating you with comfort and emotional safety, everything else becomes easier. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Because the anchor touch alone is powerful, but when you combine it with the next psychological trigger, something deeper happens. Something that makes her remember you long after you've let go. And it all comes down to what you do in the final half second before the hug ends. Because that final half second is where most men unknowingly destroy the very attraction they just started to build. Everything could be going right up to that point. You pull her in with confidence, your hand is placed correctly, her body begins to relax, and then suddenly you break the moment too quickly. You pull away the instant contact is made, almost like you're afraid of staying there too long. And in that exact moment, the emotional connection you are starting to create disappears before it has time to settle. This is why understanding timing is everything. A hug is not just about how it begins, it's about how long you allow the moment to exist. Most people treat hugs like a routine action. Quick contact, quick release, move on. There's no intention behind it, no presence, no awareness. It's mechanical. But when you hold her for just half a second longer than what she expects, everything changes in a way that feels subtle on the surface but powerful underneath. That tiny extension creates a pause, and in that pause, her mind and body begin to react differently. At first, she notices it without fully understanding it. She becomes aware that you're still there, still holding her, still present. Then a question forms in her mind. Why does this feel different? That question is important because it pulls her attention toward you instead of away from you. And attention is the first step toward attraction. As that moment continues, even if it's only for an extra half second, her body begins to register warmth, closeness, and intention. Not desperation, not neediness, but intention. That's the key difference. You are not holding on because you're afraid to let go. You are holding on because you are comfortable being there. That confidence communicates more than words ever could. It tells her that you are not rushing, not anxious, not unsure of yourself. You are grounded, controlled, and fully present in the moment. And that presence is what creates emotional imprinting. Emotional imprinting is when a small experience leaves a lasting impression on someone's mind, even if they don't consciously realize why. That extra half second becomes something her body remembers. Long after the hug is over, long after the conversation ends, that feeling lingers. She may not be able to explain it, but she will feel it. She might think about you later and wonder why you stand out compared to other men she interacts with. And it often comes back to moments like this. Moments that felt slightly different, slightly deeper, slightly more intentional. But here's where most men get confused. They think holding longer means holding tighter or dragging the moment out in an obvious way. That's not the case. The extension must feel natural. It should not feel forced or exaggerated. It's not about turning the hug into something dramatic. It's about allowing the moment to breathe for just a little longer than expected. Just enough for her to feel it. Just enough for her to notice without questioning it consciously. When done correctly, it doesn't make her uncomfortable. It makes her curious. And curiosity is one of the strongest drivers of attraction because it keeps her thinking about you even when you're not there. Now compare that to what happens when a man rushes the hug. When he pulls away too quickly, it signals discomfort. It shows that he is not fully relaxed in close physical proximity. It suggests that he is either nervous, unsure, or trying to avoid the moment altogether. And women pick up on that instantly. They may not analyze it logically, but their body feels it. And when her body feels uncertainty, attraction drops. This is why confidence is not about being loud or dominant. It's about being calm and in control, especially in small moments like this. When you allow the hug to last just slightly longer, you are showing her that you are not afraid of connection. You are not afraid of closeness. You are not afraid of being present with her, and that energy is rare. Most men avoid it because they are overthinking every move, worrying about how they're being perceived, trying not to make a mistake. But in doing so, they remove the very thing that creates attraction, which is authenticity and presence. When you stay in that moment just a little longer, you create space for something real to be felt. And once she feels that, she begins to associate you with that emotional experience. But timing alone is not enough. Because even if you hold her perfectly, even if you create that pause, there is still another layer happening beneath the surface. Something even more powerful that most men completely ignore. It's not about your hands anymore. It's not about how long you hold her. It's about your body's internal state in that moment. Because while you're holding her, she's not just feeling your arms around her, she's feeling your energy, your tension, your breathing, and that's where the real shift happens. Because while your arms are holding her, your body is communicating something even deeper, something she feels without thinking, something that either relaxes her instantly or makes her subtly pull away. And that is your internal state, your breathing, your level of calm, your ability to stay present without tension. Most men completely overlook this because they focus only on the external actions, where to place their hands, how long to hold, when to release, but they forget that the strongest signal comes from within. A woman doesn't just feel your touch, she feels the energy behind it. She can sense if your body is tight, if your chest is stiff, if your breath is shallow, if your mind is racing. Even if everything looks right on the outside, that internal tension leaks through in ways you cannot hide. And when she feels that tension, it creates a subtle discomfort in her own body. She may not know why, but something feels slightly off. This is where the third psychological trigger comes in, and it is one of the most powerful yet most ignored, because it's so simple that most men don't take it seriously. As you hold her, you take a slow, controlled breath out. Not forced, not exaggerated, just a calm, steady exhale. That single action changes everything. Because when your breathing slows down, your body signals relaxation. Your chest softens, your muscles release tension, your heartbeat steadies. And when your body relaxes, her body responds to it automatically. This is called co-regulation, a natural process where one person's nervous system influences the other. When you are calm, she becomes calm. When you are grounded, she feels grounded. When you are present, she begins to drop out of her head and into the moment with you. This is why women often describe a man as having a calming presence. It's not about what he says. It's not about what he does. It's about how he feels to be around. And that feeling is created through subtle signals like breathing. When you exhale slowly during a hug, her body picks up on that rhythm. It tells her that you are not anxious, not reactive, not trying to perform. You are simply there, comfortable in your own skin, comfortable with her presence, comfortable with the closeness. And that comfort allows her to relax in a way she cannot with a man who is tense or overthinking. Think about the difference between being held by someone who is calm and steady versus someone who is tight and unsure. The first feels safe, warm, almost effortless. The second feels awkward, disconnected, slightly uncomfortable, even if you can't explain why. That difference is not in the technique, it's in the energy. And energy is communicated through the body, especially through breath. When you breathe slowly, you send the subconscious message that you are in control of yourself. You are not overwhelmed by the moment. You are not trying to rush through it. You are allowing it to happen naturally. That level of control is deeply attractive because it signals emotional stability. And emotional stability is one of the core traits women look for, even if they never say it directly. They want to feel like the man they are with can handle closeness without losing himself, can stay present without becoming awkward, can create a sense of calm instead of tension. Your breath during a hug is one of the fastest ways to communicate that, and the effect is immediate. When she feels your chest rise and fall slowly, when she senses that steady rhythm, her own breathing begins to match it. Her shoulders drop slightly, her body softens, her mind quiets. In that moment, she is no longer analyzing you, she is experiencing you, and that experience is what creates connection. Because connection is not built through logic, it is built through feeling. When she feels relaxed in your arms, she begins to associate you with that state. She begins to trust you without needing a reason. And trust is the foundation of attraction. Without it, nothing develops. With it, everything becomes possible. But here's the part most men don't realize. When a woman relaxes around you physically, she also opens up emotionally faster. Her guard lowers, her defenses soften, her resistance fades. And that shift can happen in seconds if the conditions are right. The anchor touch creates the initial sense of safety. The extended hold creates emotional awareness. But the breath, the calm, controlled exhale, that is what locks it in. That is what tells her body it's okay to stay in that moment instead of pulling away from it. And once she reaches that state, once she feels that calm connection, something else begins to happen. Something even more subtle, but incredibly powerful, because now her mind starts to move in a different direction. And it's triggered by the smallest, almost invisible detail that most men don't even think about. What happens as you begin to pull away? Because the moment you begin to pull away is not the end of the interaction. It's actually where one of the most powerful psychological shifts can happen. And most men completely miss it without ever realizing the impact it could have had. Up until now, you've created safety with your touch, built awareness with your timing, and established calm with your breath. But as the hug transitions towards separation, there is a small window where attraction can quietly intensify. This is where the fourth trigger comes into play, something so subtle that it often goes unnoticed consciously, yet it leaves a lasting impression that stays with her long after you're gone. As you begin to release her, instead of pulling away abruptly or mechanically, you allow the movement to be slow, natural, and controlled. And within that movement, you slightly turn your head so that your cheek gently brushes against hers. Not forced, not exaggerated, not deliberate in an obvious way, just a soft, almost accidental contact that feels natural in the flow of the moment. That tiny detail carries more weight than most men could ever imagine. Because touch on the face is deeply personal. It's not something we share casually with everyone. It belongs to a different category of interaction, one that is closer, more intimate, more emotionally charged. When your cheek lightly grazes hers, her brain instantly registers a shift. Without needing to think about it, she feels that the interaction has moved beyond something purely friendly. It crosses an invisible boundary from neutral to personal, from casual to meaningful. And that shift creates a spark of curiosity in her mind. She may not react outwardly, she may not say anything, but internally, something changes. She begins to replay that moment. Was that intentional? Did he mean to do that? Why did that feel different? That internal questioning is powerful because it keeps you in her thoughts. It creates a loop where her mind returns to that small detail, trying to understand it, trying to make sense of the feeling it created. And the more she thinks about it, the stronger the impression becomes. This is how attraction often grows, not through big gestures, but through small, meaningful moments that linger. What makes this even more effective is that it doesn't demand anything from her. You're not forcing a reaction, you're not making her uncomfortable, you're not pushing for escalation, you're simply creating a moment that invites her to feel something without pressure. And that invitation is what makes it so powerful. It allows her to explore the feeling on her own terms, it gives her space to process it without resistance. And when there is no pressure, there is no need for her to pull away emotionally. Instead, she leans into the curiosity. Now compare that to what happens when a man pulls away abruptly. The connection breaks instantly. There is no transition, no lingering feeling, no emotional residue. The moment ends as quickly as it began, leaving nothing behind. But when you create that soft, gradual separation combined with that brief cheek contact, you extend the emotional experience just enough for it to settle in her mind. It becomes something she carries with her, even if she doesn't fully understand why. And here's where it gets even more interesting. That small moment can subtly influence how she perceives you moving forward. Because once her brain registers that level of closeness, it opens the door to new possibilities. It shifts how she categorizes you. You're no longer just someone she interacts with casually. You become someone who exists in a slightly more intimate space. And once that shift happens, her behavior around you begins to change in small ways. She may stand a little closer during conversations. She may become more aware of your presence. She may pay more attention to your expressions, your tone, your movements. All of this happens beneath the surface, driven by that initial moment of subtle intimacy. This is how you move from being just another face in her life to someone she starts to notice differently. And the beauty of it is that it feels natural. It doesn't feel forced or artificial. It flows with the interaction, blending into the moment in a way that feels effortless. That's what makes it effective. Because true attraction is never about forcing outcomes. It's about creating the right conditions and allowing the response to happen organically. When you combine this with everything that came before, the anchor touch, the extended hold, the calm exhale, you create a complete experience. Each element builds on the other, forming a sequence that feels smooth, intentional, and deeply engaging on a subconscious level. And when all of these come together in a single interaction, something interesting begins to happen. Because now you're not just someone she remembers, you're someone she feels differently about, someone who stands out without trying, someone who creates an emotional imprint that doesn't fade easily. But knowing each of these elements individually is not enough. The real power comes from understanding how to combine them seamlessly, how to move through the entire interaction without overthinking, without breaking the flow, and that's exactly what we're about to put together step by step. Because understanding each trigger on its own is only half the equation. The real transformation happens when you bring them together in one smooth, natural flow, without hesitation, without overthinking, without breaking the moment. This is where most men struggle, not because the techniques are complicated, but because they try too hard to execute them perfectly instead of allowing them to happen naturally. The goal is not to perform a sequence like a checklist. The goal is to embody the feeling behind it so that everything flows effortlessly. When done correctly, it doesn't feel like a strategy, it feels like who you are. So let's walk through how this actually looks in real time, from the very first second to the final moment of separation. It starts before the hug even happens, in the way you approach her. Your body language sets the tone. You don't hesitate, you don't overanalyze, you don't ask for permission through nervous eye contact or uncertain movement. You simply step in with calm confidence, making the interaction feel natural and expected. That initial movement already communicates something important. It shows that you are comfortable taking the lead, that you are not afraid of physical closeness, that you trust yourself in the moment. As you move in, your arms wrap around her in a way that feels intentional but not overwhelming. And this is where the first trigger activates. Your hand finds its place on her upper back, right between her shoulder blades. Not randomly, not softly, but with grounded, steady pressure. That single point of contact becomes the anchor of the entire interaction. It stabilizes the moment, it signals strength, it creates a sense of support that her body instantly recognizes. At the same time, your other hand rests naturally, not grabbing, not squeezing, just there, allowing the hug to feel balanced and comfortable. Now you're fully in the moment, and this is where most men make their mistake. They rush, they panic internally and try to exit as quickly as possible. But instead of doing that, you stay. You allow the moment to exist. You hold her just slightly longer than what she expects, not in a way that feels forced, but in a way that feels calm and unhurried. That extra half second becomes the bridge between a normal interaction and something that feels meaningful. It gives her body time to register your presence, to notice the difference, to feel the warmth and stability you're creating. And while you're holding her, you shift your focus inward. You don't think about what she's feeling, you don't analyze the moment, you simply breathe. A slow, steady exhale, natural and controlled. That breath travels through your body, releasing any tension you might have been holding. Your chest softens, your shoulders relax, your entire presence becomes grounded. And without saying a single word, you communicate calmness. That calmness transfers to her. Her body begins to mirror yours. Her breathing slows, her muscles relax, her mind quiets. In that moment, she is not evaluating you, she is experiencing you. And that experience is what creates the emotional connection. Now comes the transition, the part where everything either comes together or falls apart. As you begin to release, you don't break the contact abruptly. You let it unfold slowly, naturally, as if the moment is fading rather than ending. And within that movement, you slightly turn your head so that your cheek brushes against hers. Just briefly, just enough to create that subtle shift in intimacy. It doesn't feel planned, it doesn't feel forced, it feels like part of the moment. And that's what makes it so powerful, because it slips past her conscious mind and goes straight to her emotional response. That tiny contact plants a seed. It introduces a new layer to how she perceives you. And before she even realizes it, she begins to associate you with closeness, warmth, and something just slightly deeper than what she expected. Then you complete the interaction with a slow, controlled release. No sudden movement, no awkward separation, just a smooth return to normal distance. And when you step back, everything feels different, even if nothing obvious has changed. She feels warmer, more aware, more curious. The interaction leaves behind a subtle emotional imprint that doesn't fade immediately. And this is where the real shift happens, not in the hug itself, but in what comes after. Because now every interaction that follows is influenced by that moment. She looks at you differently. She feels your presence differently. There's a quiet familiarity, a sense of comfort, and at the same time, a hint of curiosity that wasn't there before. This is how attraction builds without force, without pressure, without needing to say anything extraordinary. It grows from small, well-executed moments that feel real. But there's one final piece to this, something that determines whether all of this becomes a one-time experience or something that continues to develop over time. And it comes down to how you carry yourself after the moment is over. Because what happens after the hug is just as important as everything that happened during it, and this is where most men lose the advantage they just created without even realizing it. They execute the moment well, they create that connection, they trigger that emotional response, and then they immediately break the energy by becoming unsure, overly talkative, or trying too hard to maintain the feeling they just created. And the moment they do that, the natural flow disappears. What made the interaction powerful was not just the technique, it was the calm, grounded presence behind it. If that presence disappears the second the hug ends, the entire experience loses its impact. This is why the final piece of the puzzle is not about doing more, it's about doing less while maintaining control of your energy. When you step back from the hug, you don't rush to fill the silence. You don't immediately seek validation through conversation. You don't look at her waiting for a reaction. You remain composed, relaxed, and present. That small pause after separation is where she processes everything she just felt. Her mind begins to catch up with her body. She becomes aware that something about that interaction felt different, even if she cannot fully explain why. And instead of interrupting that process, you allow it to happen. You give the moment space to settle. This is where confidence truly shows itself. Not in what you say, but in your ability to stay comfortable without needing to control the outcome. Most men are afraid of silence because they associate it with awkwardness. But silence, when held with confidence, is powerful. It gives her time to feel, to think, to become aware of the subtle shift that just occurred. And that awareness is what deepens the impression. When you remain calm after the hug, you reinforce everything she just experienced. You show consistency. You show that the grounded energy she felt in your arms is not an act, it's who you are. And that consistency builds trust. Now, as the interaction continues, whether it's conversation, walking together, or simply standing nearby, your behavior stays aligned with that same energy. You're not trying to impress her. You're not trying to recreate the moment. You're simply present, engaged, and relaxed. This is where attraction naturally grows because it doesn't feel forced. It feels real. She begins to feel comfortable around you, not just physically, but emotionally. And comfort is the foundation of deeper connection. When a woman feels comfortable, she opens up more easily. She becomes more expressive, more engaged, more interested in being around you. And all of that stems from the initial experience you created and the way you maintained it afterward. But here's something important to understand. None of this works if it comes from a place of manipulation. If you are trying to control her reaction, if you are focused on getting a specific outcome, your energy will reflect that, and she will feel it. Women are extremely sensitive to intention. They can sense when a man is being genuine and when he is trying too hard. This is why the foundation of everything we've talked about is authenticity. You are not using these triggers to fake attraction. You are using them to express confidence, presence, and emotional stability in a way that she can feel. When it comes from that place, it works naturally. When it doesn't, it falls apart quickly. Now think about the difference between two men. One executes a perfect hug but then becomes awkward, overthinks, and tries to chase her reaction. The other creates the moment and then simply continues being himself, calm, grounded, and present. The second man is the one she remembers, not because he did something extraordinary, but because he made her feel something real, and then allowed that feeling to exist without interfering with it. And that is the real secret behind everything we've covered. It's not about the hug itself. It's about the experience you create and the way you carry that experience forward. The anchor touch creates safety. The extended hold creates awareness. The calm exhale creates relaxation. The subtle cheek contact creates curiosity. And your presence afterward turns all of that into lasting attraction. When these elements come together, you don't just become someone she interacts with, you become someone she feels. And people remember feelings far longer than they remember words or actions. This is why small moments like this can have a lasting impact when done correctly. They create emotional imprints that influence how she sees you moving forward. She may not talk about it, she may not even fully understand it, but she will feel it, and that feeling will shape her perception of you in ways that go far beyond that single interaction. So the next time you find yourself in that moment, don't treat it like something ordinary. Don't rush through it. Don't overthink it. Be present, be calm, and allow the interaction to unfold naturally. Because when you do, you're not just giving a hug, you're creating an experience that stays with her long after it's over. And if you want to understand more hidden layers of attraction, more subtle psychological dynamics that most men completely miss, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss what comes next. Because the deeper you go into this, the more you begin to see what others never even realize exists.